I am determined to make Hydreigon EX more consistent, and sometimes that means doing something a little bit different. I really do believe this card can be good, seeing that Manaphy is gone, nobody really uses Rabsca for some reason, and we have yet to see how often Shaman will be played. So we just need to find the proper setup to consistently get to Obsidian. Last week we tried out Zoroark EX, and it was actually pretty good. It could draw a lot of cards per turn, but sometimes we couldn't find that one exact card we needed. Pidgeot is the usual choice here because of this, but having one card for draw support is just a little too risky sometimes. So today we'll try and blend these two methods with the Noctowl draw engine. Will this make sense? I'm not really sure yet because I haven't recorded the gameplay, but sometimes you just gotta send it. And for starters, you might be wondering why you see a Cornerstone Ogerpon and a Fighting Energy in the deck. For Noctowl to work, you have to have a Tera Pokemon in play, and it's helpful to be a basic Pokemon so that you can use it right away. Secondly, Cornerstone Ogerpon is really good at stalling while we set up for Hydreigon. Some decks are even completely stopped by Cornerstone Ogerpon, like this Goldingo deck, and it can help to hit through any other walls that our opponents put in front of us. One Milotic can give Hydreigon some trouble, so Cornerstone Ogerpon is here to help with that. To make sure we can set up as we expect, we'll have a few Fan Rotom and a Ditto in the deck as well. Fan Rotom can set up our Hoothoot and Noctowl, while Ditto helps make sure we can get our Ogerpon in play. I'm keeping most of the same item and supporter cards that we had in the Zoroark deck. We just had to cut down on the counts of our trainer cards, seeing that we needed to fit in a few more Pokemon, and we can pick them out directly with Noctowl instead of having to draw into them. I ended up removing the Monkey Dory from the last video because of bench space and because I spend most of the time trying to attach to Hydreigon, and I also cut the Janine from the deck since I found myself opting for other supporter cards like Crispin in most cases. We kept the Pecharunt EX as a way to switch between Hydreigon and to poison us for that extra Binding Mochi damage. I also added an Area 0 Underdepths so we can use our Noctowl and then knock the stadium to remove them from the board. If you enjoy this video or find it helpful, please hit that like button. The view to like ratio is super helpful in telling me which decks everyone wants to see. And we'll start out in this first game by showing the ideal hand and the way you want to start out, so it doesn't always end up like this in your starting hand, but sometimes you just get all the cards you need. So we'll start by showing the best case scenario with Ditto here in the active, and that'll help us get to our Cornerstone Ogerpon that unlocks the use of Noctowl. So we'll also go ahead and prize check here real quick. I tried to include enough in the deck so that we wouldn't prize too many of the super important pieces. Really just that Neo Upper Energy is the one-of card that can really get you stuck sometimes. But we also have Fan Rotom in our opening hand to grab to Hoothoot. A lot of the times I'll also get either a Ditto or a Noctowl there, but there's only two Noctowl in the deck and I already had one in my hand. So if we get Iono'd on this next turn, I want to be able to possibly draw into one. But we also had a Deino in hand and an Energy. So we put down a couple of our Deino and move on to our opponent's turn. Now, a lot of the times I'll be missing like an Energy or something like that, or a way to get to Noctowl, which is pretty tough, but this hand happened to have it all. And I filled up the bench because a lot of the times our opponent will take an early knockout, put us behind in prize cards, and that's when we can go ahead and find either our Fezandipiti or our Pecharunt or something like that. So I didn't feel too bad about filling up the entire bench right here, seeing that there's a bunch of things that are kind of liable to be knocked out super early. This Hyper Blower from our opponent is kind of annoying here. I have to take a second to figure out which card I want to get out of the way. I had already decided what I wanted to use this Noctowl for before this little wrinkle came in. For some reason, I consider moving something else in, but I know it's going to get knocked out by their Hopzation here. So I go with the Fan Rotom because that is the least useful thing at the moment. It's already done its job. And then Cramorant can't attack unless there are 3 or 4 prize cards remaining. So they'll go ahead and move to the Hopzation and do their attack. So I believe with that Hops banned, they'll have enough to take a knockout and then put 30 damage on our Deino. And we can just go ahead and promote our next card, which is going to end up being Cornerstone Ogerpon. So Cornerstone Ogerpon moves into the active spot. I didn't promote the Deino here, even though I know I have an evolution with Noctowl in my hand, because I was hoping I could get to some kind of Binding Mochi Pecharunt play and still be able to knock out this Hopzation in front of us. I think that ends up being just a little bit too tall of an order, seeing that I don't have many other cards in my hand. So maybe this should have been a Professor's Research play instead of the Nest Ball. But I go ahead and get some of what I need here. I get the Rare Candy because the Hydreigon EX was in my hand already. I'm trying to think about how I want to do this. I'd go ahead and use the Nest Ball to get that Pecharunt. And, you know, maybe this should have been a Crispin and a Rare Candy instead. So I could have put a Fighting Energy on our active, put the Dark Energy, or sorry, the Neo Upper Energy onto the Hydreigon, and then just retreated the Cornerstone Ogerpon to do this attack, but I decided to go this way instead. I am poisoned at the moment. I just wasn't able to get to the Binding Mochi at the same time, so couldn't knock him out, but put down plenty of damage, and now we are 1 energy away from an Obsidian play. And with the current setup that my opponent has, they don't have a clear way to knock us out at the moment. They would need a lot more energy to get to Hopzation's second attack, and some of the other Pokemon aren't going to do quite enough damage, so I have a good feeling, depending on what my next card is, that we're going to be able to get to an Obsidian play. And that's pretty much it. They, for some reason, boss up one of the cards on my bench. I believe that was a Hoothoot, and just take the knockout there, which they probably didn't need to do. I almost put this Dark Energy on the Zweilous, but then realized, hey, I have Obsidian here right in front of us. Go ahead and take out the Hopzation and the Cramorant, put some more damage back there. And this game continues for a little bit longer. They put some more things down, but that's the general idea. You don't need to sit here and watch me bully this person. And I wanted to show this next game for a couple reasons. One, because we start with a miserable hand. We have a Fezandipiti in our active spot and just a Hoothoot to start out. No way to get to like a Deino or a Fan Rotom to pull out a Ditto and get to our Cornerstone Ogerpon. So a tough start that we'll have to overcome with this first hand. And second, because it's a little bit better of a deck. It's our Chaladon with Hop's Double that works like a boss's orders. And it again has Hopzation in it. But I'm not trying to fool anybody and say that this deck that I'm playing is like the best or is going to take on a Dragapult or a Gardevoir. Those decks are a little bit too good right now, and they would absolutely, crush this one at the moment. But it's still competitive and able to do some big damage. It's hard to knock out in our Chaladon with 300 HP. So it's still a fun game to watch, in my opinion at least, as long as we can get to an Obsidian and have some fun. So our opponent starts out going first and grabs, a tool that they need, some of those Hops cards to get started. I have to read this one because I always forget what it does, but you can get 2 basic Hops Pokemon out. And I believe that Hop's Band will do an extra 30 damage to whatever they attach it to. So it's probably going to be the Hopzation that they just pulled out. But they also get a Snorlax on the bench. So they attach 1 energy to Hopzation, put on 1 tool, another tool, and then they'll probably want to evolve this Duraludon into an Archaladon in a future play, just to be able to do a little bit more damage with their second attack. But we're going to go ahead and bump their stadium with Colress's Tenacity so that we can get some kind of Pokemon going, and then also grab a Dark Energy while we're here. So a lot of the times I'll like to save this Colress's Tenacity to get our Neo Upper Energy later in the game, but we got to get something going here. So we grab the Deino, we attach an energy. That's really all we can do. We can't use this Noctowl because we have no Tera Pokemon in play, which is a bummer. And that's why we have Cornerstone Ogerpon usually, but nothing we can get to yet. So just kind of hoping that they aren't able to get some energy discarded here. If they're able to discard 2 energy and evolve to an Archaladon, they can attach 2 energy, plus 1 from hand, and then attack for 220 with Archaladon. But they go ahead and give us a little fake boss's orders with their Hop's Double, pull in our Deino, and at this point I think Deino's being taken out, and then we're kind of up the creek without a paddle. But for some reason, they just Professor's Research and then end up not attacking me. They pass it back to us. So I don't know why they moved that into the active. That kind of helps me a little bit actually, so I'm appreciative, but I don't really understand. They give the thumbs up, so maybe they felt bad for me with my terrible start. Not sure, but we go ahead and use our Artazon here to grab another Deino. Unfortunately, at this point, there's no reason to use like a Fan Rotom or something because it's past our first turn, so that can't help us get anything out anymore. I go ahead and gamble a little bit with this energy and just attach since it's in front of us, and then Iono and try and get into something good. And we end up getting 2 perfect cards in Rare Candy and a Tera Orb. So we use the Tera Orb here, grab ourselves a Hydreigon, and we're at least fighting at this point now that we're able to evolve and get an attack off. We have our 2 energy ready. We have a Nest Ball as well. And this is a choice, I believe. I could have gone with a Hoothoot here. I did have one down. But I wanted to make sure that I could use this Hoothoot and evolve to it in the future, even if they knocked out my active in some way. So I believe I consider the Hoothoot and then go back and get the Cornerstone Ogerpon. So again, this was just to make sure I could use that Hoothoot and evolve it in the future and use Noctowl's ability, but we go ahead and get the Hoothoot with our Buddy-Buddy Poffin instead. Looking in my hand, I have a Tera Orb. So I probably could have used the Tera Orb to get this Cornerstone Ogerpon, but I was kind of saving that for another Hydreigon. So we go ahead and use our attack just to take out this Duraludon. I figure it's not too bad to take just one prize card. In this case, I think it was the right choice because I didn't send any of their energy to the discard pile. And it at least gets us a prize card so we can get this Area 0 Under Depths if we need it, if we need a little more space. At the moment, I don't really know that we do. But if we move one of these Hoothoot into a Noctowl, we can use our Area 0 Under Depths to still put down our Pecharunt. And then if that stadium gets knocked, we can just remove the used Noctowl. But back to our opponent, they're going to use the Artazon as well to get out one of their basic Pokemon without a rule box. But as for our next turn, we do have a way to get a little bit more energy if needed. I think I would also want to start using Obsidian if possible if we can find our Neo upper energy. Or we could just start setting up our bench Deino here in case this first Pokemon gets knocked out. Playing against this deck, it doesn't seem like they have a way to knock out our Hydreigon in one hit, but they don't even want to give me the chance, I guess, because they're going to Boss's Orders this Deino. Go ahead and use Hopzation to knock it out. And they accidentally hit my Cornerstone Ogerpon with some bench damage. I don't know if that was, they just forgot about that Tera rule where they can't be damaged by attacks on the bench or what it is, but we get away from that bench damage there. So now, since I took a knockout, we have a way to flip the script, get a few more cards. And we also have a Brock Scouting in hand if we want to be able to use that. So we go ahead and get ourselves another Deino since we drew ourselves into a Buddy-Buddy Poffin. I have a little bit more energy here that I can get, or I can use Brock's Scouting to go ahead and search some more cards up. So I used Brock's Scouting to go ahead and search for a Noctowl, and I'm actually going to end up not using it. I used the supporter there because I wasn't going to use any other supporter. I didn't want a Professor's Research at the moment. And they can Iono this out of my hand, but I at least have it for the next turn. I just wasn't going to use a supporter otherwise. So I guess I could have grabbed like a Zweilous or something and started building towards that Deino, but I consider using Noctowl and realize I probably want to save that for like a Boss's Orders or another more impactful supporter in a future turn. So I just hold that in the hand for now and go ahead and Crashing Headbutt for 200, discard a couple cards, and start putting some damage on the board. So now in a next turn, if I can use that Noctowl to grab another Colress's Experiment or something like that, we can get our Neo upper energy. Or if I want to grab a Crispin, I can put 2 more energy that I need onto Hydreigon and be able to use Obsidian in that way. So again, this Noctowl could get taken out of our hand, but otherwise I just wasn't going to use a supporter at all in that last turn. So I thought I might as well while I had it. And they go ahead and Professor Turo and remove that damage that we did anyways. So we're going to stay at 5/5 prize cards here. They're going to go ahead and use their Archaludon EX to add 2 more energy that they just discarded. And they can do up to 220 damage on us right here. They put down another Hopzation as well, and Metal Defender goes ahead and does that damage. So there's the Crispin that I was considering grabbing with Noctowl. Again, if I didn't use that Brock Scouting in the last turn, I would have still used Crispin here. I just wouldn't have the Noctowl to use afterwards. So we go ahead and grab a couple more energy here. 1 more Metal energy because that's one of the last ones we need for Obsidian, and another Dark. And now we can use the Noctowl to search up a few more cards, which we will. So we go ahead and get an Ultra Ball for possibly a future Noctowl, and then a rare candy. We have the Tera Orb in hand already to get a Hydreigon EX for this second Deino here to get that evolved. Then we have an Earthen Vessel, so we still should have a Crashing Headbutt attack in our next turn because we have the energy for it, and we'll just go ahead and Obsidian, put some damage on the board. Now this Archaludon is in range to be knocked out in our next hit, and then if we are able to get to another Obsidian in the future with a Neo upper energy, that's great, but also Hopzation is set up for another attack, so this deck that we're playing against does like to use Professor Turo a lot to pick things up, which can be annoying when you're placing damage all over the place, but I'm generally just not too worried about Archaludon doing 220 damage at a time, because that means for the rest of the game they're going to have to 2-shot me each time. And with 5 prize cards remaining, they have to take out 2 Hydreigon and then something else. So they have their work cut out ahead of them. They take a knockout here, and I have our backup Hydreigon ready to go. So I promote Hydreigon EX for our backup attacker here, And then we draw into an Earthen Vessel for some more energy. I think about using it, but I always forget to use Flip the Script first. Luckily, I go ahead and flip the script and get directly into our Neo Upper Energy that we were looking for. So now I'm trying to think of how I can get to an Obsidian play to take several knockouts at once. I think the most straightforward answer on this play would be just to attach one energy, or this Neo Upper Energy, to our active and go ahead and knock out their Archaludon. But I try to 400 IQ play myself a little bit too much here. And I grab a Noctowl. I'm trying to think of what else I want to grab, because I realize I don't have more energy in the deck to be able to set up a Pecharunt that I considered. So here's me considering Pecharunt, and then remembering, oh, I don't have more energy to put 2 Dark Energy on that. So I go back to the Noctowl, and I believe I'm going to use that to get a Boss's Orders, and then one more card. So I go ahead and get the thumbs up from our opponent here. They're waiting for me to make a choice here. So I put down the Neo Upper Energy because I don't believe they're knocking me out at the moment. They can do 220 damage with Archaludon. If they get all of the pieces, they can do, what is it, like 300 with Hopzation or something like that. So I think I can keep this for one more turn and attach one more energy on our next turn. Here, I think I probably should have grabbed this Night Stretcher for an energy. So I grab Boss's Orders to, do my over-the-top play that I'm thinking about, and a Night Stretcher. And as I'm looking at energy here, I have 1 energy left in my hand and none in the deck. So I should have grabbed another one to potentially be able to attack with Pecharunt to close this one out. For some reason I grabbed Deino. I don't know if I was thinking I could set up another one, but that's not happening with 1 more energy left in the deck. Especially if I'm going to try and attach this Dark Energy in our next turn for Obsidian. So Deino here is a bit questionable, but we go ahead and use our Boss's Orders, Dragon, the Hopzation with the energy, but with no damage on it, because I want to make sure they have to either retreat into this Archaludon to put down the 220 damage, or something else. They don't have any more Duraludon on the bench to be able to build up this Hopzation. So I don't believe they're going to have too much of a play here, and then I can attach 1 more energy and knock out both of their Zation on the next turn to end the game. This is also hoping that they don't have a Professor Turo to just pick one of them up, but either way on the next turn, I should have some knockouts in store. They're going to go ahead and use an Ultra Ball, so I thought at this point they were going to get their double to have like another Boss's Orders effect, but they just grab an Archaludon that they can't really use in any way because there's no Duraludon down on the board. They end up Ionoing us after putting down an energy. Which loses the energy for us, but luckily we draw into a Crispin where we can just grab it once again. So as long as I'm able to get back into that Crispin, I can Obsidian and take out a couple more bench Pokemon. So they do end up attaching with, or switching and attacking with Archaludon. We use Crispin to grab that 1 energy back, attach it, and then use Obsidian. So this Archaludon lives, but the 2 benched Hopzation get knocked out for 4 prize cards, which is a fun way to end the game. So again, not beating some of the top decks in the format, but still fun to use to knock out 4 prize cards at once. You're still here? It's over. Go watch another video. Go.